Welcome to the channel. In this video, we will see how we can build a simple banking system using the Python programming language. Here, we will have the options to check the balance, deposit and withdraw funds. Now, once we are done with this program, when we run this, it will display the options to deposit, withdraw, check balance and exit the program. Here, if I want to check the balance, I have to enter a number. It will display the balance that I have in my account. If I want to withdraw, then we have to choose an option. And here we have to enter the amount that we want to withdraw. Let us say $200. And if the balance is there in our account, then only we will be able to withdraw. Otherwise, it will say insufficient funds. And finally, in order to deposit, we can choose an option. We can enter the amount that we want to deposit, and that will be added to our account. Now, once we have balance in our account, if we go for checking the balance, it will display that account balance. And similarly, if you want to withdraw, we will be able to withdraw the amount as long as it is less than the amount that we have in our account. In order to terminate this program, we will enter an option. It will terminate the program. Now let us see how we can build this. Now here what we will do is we will define a function, and I will call it as main, and this main function will be the entry point of our program, and it will display the menu. Depending on the user's choice, it will perform specific operations. Now here we will keep on displaying the menu as long as user wants to run this program. For that, we will use the while loop in here, and I will make the condition for this while loop as always true. So it will be an infinite loop, and then we will have the menu. So here this will be the menu that we will display. We will say banking system, and then we will display the options for the user. 1 is for deposit, 2 for withdraw, 3 for check balance and 4 for exit. Now after seeing this menu, the user has to enter his choice. So what we do is we will use the input function, and we will ask the user to choose an option. Now the user can enter a number from his keyboard. Now what we do is we will store the choice that the user has entered in a variable, and I will call it as choice. Now one thing that we have to remember here is this input function returns the user input in the form of a string value. This choice variable is containing a value of type string. Now what we have to do is we have to check for the value that the user has entered, or in other words, we have to check for the user's choice, and we have to perform that particular operation. So what I will do is I will use the if else conditional statement. So I will use if here, and I will check whether the user has entered the option 1. For that, we will write if choice equal to string value 1. Remember, I said the choice variable contains the value in string form because this input function returns the user input in string form, and we are not converting that to number. If you want, you can do that, but here I'm not doing that. So now here, what is this option 1? Option 1 is for depositing the amount. Now when the user wants to deposit amount to his bank account, what we have to do is we have to ask how much amount you want to deposit. So here I will use the input function, and I will display this message: enter the amount that you want to deposit. The user will enter a value, and this input function will return that value in string form. So here we want to work with the numbers, and that's why we will convert the user input to number form by using this float function, and then we will store that user input in number form in a variable, and I will call it as amount. Now after that, what we have to do is we have to perform the operation of depositing the funds. Now here I will not implement this deposit funds right now. We will do that later. For the time being, we are building the menu. Once we are done with that, we will implement this functionality. Now after this, we will go for the option 2. Option 2 is for withdrawing the funds. So here we will have the elif conditional statement. So it will be elif, and then we will check whether the choice that the user has entered is 2. So here if you see, 2 is for withdrawing the funds. So what we want to do here is we want to implement the functionality of withdrawing the funds. Again, when the user wants to withdraw the amount from his account, what we have to do is we have to ask how much you want to withdraw. So here again, similar to the way we have done while depositing the funds, we will ask the user to enter the amount that he wants to withdraw by using this input function. Then whatever the value that the user enters, it will be returned by this input function in string form. We will convert that to float type. We will store that in a variable and we call it as amount. Now here again, we will implement the withdraw functionality later. Now after that, we will go for the choice 3, and that is for checking the balance. So here again, we will have the elif conditional statement, and we will check whether the user has entered the choice 3. If it is so, what he wants to do is he wants to view the funds that he has in his bank account. So here we will implement this functionality later. So here we will say view funds, and we will display a message, just for the time being, stating that viewing funds. And similarly, if you want, you can add the message to this part. So here, depositing funds, and then here withdrawing funds. Now remember, we have not implemented these functionalities. We are just building the menu. Okay. Now the next choice that we can see here is for exiting the program. And for that, user has to enter 4. So we will check for that. So here again, we will have the elif, and we will check whether the user has entered the choice of 4. Now, if the user wants to exit this program, what we have to do is we have to stop this while loop. So as long as user enters input other than this 4, we will keep on running this while loop. So when the user is going to enter 4, we will stop this while loop. And for that, we will have the break statement in here, in this choice 4. Now, before the break statement, we can display a message like this: exiting the banking system, goodbye, something like that. And then finally here we will have the else block, and this else block will be executed only if the user enters a choice other than the values that we have mentioned here. So if the user is going to enter a number, let us say 8, or he can enter any key in his keyboard, in that case it will be processed in this else block. So here what we want to do is we will simply display a message stating that invalid option, please try again. Okay, so now here in this main function, we have built this menu. It will display these options. Depending on the user's choice, it will perform these specific operations. Now finally here, we will call this a main function. So what we do is we will make sure that this main function is called whenever this file is run as the standalone program. And that's why we check whether this name is containing main. If it is so, we will execute the main function. Now why we are using this is, for some reason, if someone imports this script to their project, then we don't want to run this main function. If this file is run as the standalone program, then only the main function will run, and it will display these options, and it will perform these operations. So now what we have done is we have built this main function. Let's run this and make sure that this menu part of the banking system is working properly. So I will run this program. It will display the message banking system, these options, choose an option. I will say 3 for checking the balance. It says viewing funds. Again, if you remember, we're just using this viewing funds using the printf statement, and we have not implemented that part yet. We will do that later. And here we are just testing out the menu functionality. If I enter 1 for deposit, it will ask the amount to deposit. I will say $100. Again, it will display depositing funds, and then the menu is displayed again. Now this time, if I enter, let us say 2 for withdrawing the funds, it will ask enter the amount. I will say $50, and it will just display withdrawing funds, and then the menu is displayed again. Now if I enter any other random values, for example, if I enter the alphabetical character A here as the option, then it says invalid option, please try again. Now finally, in order to exit, I will enter 4. If I hit the enter key, the program terminates after displaying this message. So here we can say that the menu part that we have built here is working properly. All we have to do right now is implement this banking functionality. Now, in order to implement the banking functionality, I will use the object-oriented programming approach. I will create a class, and in that class, we will have the properties and the methods which will work together and provide us the banking functionality. Now here, before the main function, I will create the class and I will call it as bank account. And the first method that we create here will be the constructor or the initializer. So we will have this method with the name init, and here we will provide two values. One is the account holder. It will be for the account holder's name, and then we will have the balance value. And here, while creating the account, we can specify how much balance the user will have. By default, it will be 0. Now in this init function, what we do is we will assign these function parameter values to the class fields. So we will have self dot account holder equal to account holder, and then self dot balance equal to balance. So what we are doing here in this constructor is we are defining two properties for this class, and they are called as account holder and balance. And we are getting these values when an object of this class is created. And here we are just assigning the values that we get as the argument for this constructor to this object properties. Okay. Now, after that, what we do is we will define the functionality of the bank. So here we will define the function or the method. We call it as deposit. It will take the amount that we want to deposit as the parameter. Now, when the user wants to deposit funds to his account, before depositing the amount, we have to make sure that the user has entered or provided the proper value. User can enter anything. He can enter 0, or he can enter a negative value or a positive value. So if the user says, I want to deposit minus $10 or $0, then it makes no sense. Then what we have to do is we have to display the appropriate message stating that you have to enter proper values. So here we will check for all those options. So for depositing the funds, the amount that the user wants to deposit has to be greater than 0. We will check that by using the if conditional statement. So if the amount is greater than 0, then what we do, we will perform the deposit. Now what we have to do when user deposits amount, we just have to increase his balance. So we will increment the value that is present in the user's balance by the amount that he is depositing. So here we will write self.balance plus equal to amount. So if the user has $100 previously in his account, then if he wants to deposit, let us say $50, then it will perform 100 plus 50, it will be $150. Now after incrementing the user's balance, we will display a message stating that you have deposited this much amount, your current balance is, and then we will display the updated balance that the user has in his bank account. Now what if the user has entered a value which is 0 or less than 0? In that case, we will have a else block in here, and we will display some appropriate message. So here we will say deposit amount must be positive. Now, after the deposit functionality, we will implement the withdraw functionality. For that also, again, we will define a method, and I will call this method as withdraw. Again, when we talk about withdrawing the amount, the user has to provide the amount that he wants to withdraw. Now again, when we talk about the user input, the user can enter any amount. He can enter the negative number or he can enter 0. So there is no point of withdrawing the $0 or negative amount from the balance. So here we have to check for the user input. So we will check whether the amount that the user has entered is greater than 0. In that case, what we do is we will perform some more checks. We will either approve the withdrawal or disapprove the withdrawal. So here right now I will say withdrawal. Okay. And after that, if the user has entered a value which is 0 or less than 0, for that we will have the else block, and here we will say withdrawal amount must be a positive number. So now if the user has entered an amount which is greater than 0, then what we have to do? First, we have to check whether the user has enough amount in his account as balance so that he can withdraw that. For example, let us say user has only $50 in his account, and if he wants to withdraw $100, then we should not allow that. For that, here, before allowing the withdrawal, we will check the user's balance. So here we will perform if self.balance is greater than or equal to amount. So if the balance that user has in his bank account is greater than or equal to the amount that he wants to withdraw, then we can allow the withdrawal. So here we will allow the withdrawal by performing this operation. What we are doing is we are subtracting the amount that he wants to withdraw from the account balance. So we are performing self.balance minus equal to the amount that he wants to withdraw. And after that, we will display a simple message, something like this, and we will say you have withdrawn this much amount and this is your current balance. Now finally, if the user is trying to withdraw an amount which is greater than the amount that he has in his bank account, then for that we will display an appropriate message. So here we will have the else block, and we will say insufficient funds in your account, and this is your current balance. Now finally here we have to implement the view balance section. Once we implement that, this program is complete. Okay, now we will again define that method. So I will call this as check balance, and here in order to check balance, user doesn't has to enter any amount or something like that. Here we will directly display the balance that the user has in his account. So here we will say current balance and we will display this value. So what we have done here is we have implemented this bank account functionality. Now what we have to do is we have to create an instance of this class in this main function, and after that we have to call the appropriate methods when the user chooses particular options. So the first thing that we do here in this main function is, in the beginning we will create an object of this bank account class. In other words, we will create the bank account here. So here it will be name of the class, which is bank account, and if you remember, this bank account class constructor takes two parameters. One is the name of the account holder, second one is the balance. If you don't provide the value for balance, it will be by default set to 0. So here I will provide the name for the bank account. So here I will provide my name, and then I will provide the value for the balance. Again, the second value is optional. I will say $1,000. Okay, and I will call this object as account. Now here this bank account belongs to Anil. Now what we have to do is we have to call the appropriate methods of this bank account whenever user chooses particular options. Now when the user is going to enter the choice of 1, what he wants to do is he wants to deposit the funds. So here we will write account dot deposit, and what value does this deposit method take? It is the amount that the user wants to deposit, which is available in this amount variable, which we have taken from the user input. So here I will pass that just like this. Similarly, when the user wants to withdraw, we have to perform that operation on our bank account. So it will be account dot withdraw, and again for withdrawing we have to provide the amount, and here we are taking the amount to withdraw from the user. Similarly, when the user is viewing the funds, what we have to do is we have to call account dot check balance. Okay, this check balance method doesn't take any arguments. So now what we have done here is we have implemented this program. Now let us see how this program works. So I will run this banking system deposit withdraw check balance exit. I will say check balance by entering 3. It says current balance is $1,000. Remember, we have assigned $1,000 while creating the bank account, and that's why we can see that. Now I will try to withdraw, so I will enter 2 here, enter the amount to withdraw. I will enter $2,000. It says insufficient funds, current balance is only $1,000. So again I will go for withdrawing, and this time I will enter $500. It says withdrew $500, your current balance is $500. Now after that I will go for the depositing funds, so I will enter 1. If I hit the enter key, it says enter the amount to deposit. I will enter, let us say again $1,000. If I hit the enter key, it says deposited $1,000, current balance is $1,500. Now again it will display the menu. This time if I enter 4 in here, the program will terminate. So we can say that this program that we have written is working. This is a very simple basic program that we can write, where a beginner can understand about how he can work with classes, objects, how he can work with the loops, etc. Now if you want, you can add more functionality to this. Try to experiment with this code, try to add more features. So this is it guys for this particular video. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you don't like it, hit the dislike button. If you have anything to say, write that in the comment box. For more tutorials, subscribe to the channel.